Ever wonder how those super successful people, like the ones who just seem to get it, how they think?
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Oh, cool.
John C. Maxwell's book, How Successful People Think,
Okay.
he lays out 11 different types of thinking,
Wow.
from big picture to bottom line.
That's a lot.
And trust me, you'll find some you're already rocking, and others.
Mm.
Well, there's always room for improvement, right?
Always, always. What I find so cool about this book is that Maxwell doesn't just talk theory.
Yeah.
He brings in stories.
Right.
From his own life, from business giants, from even historical figures, to really show these thinking styles in action.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of stories, there's one about popular thinking that really stuck with me.
Okay.
It's about a physics teacher who sets up this telescope for his class so they can see a planet.
Okay.
But guess what?
What?
He forgot to take the lens cap off.
Oh, no.
And you'd think someone would notice.
You really think so, right?
Yeah. But student after student looks through this telescope, says they can't see anything, even tries adjusting the focus, like the teacher told them to.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't until the very last student that anyone realized the problem.
Oh, my gosh. It's a perfect illustration of how easy it is to get caught up in what everyone else is doing or saying.
Right.
Without stopping to think for ourselves.
Right.
Popular thinking, it can be comfortable, but it rarely leads to, those groundbreaking results.
Exactly. So let's ditch that lens cap and really open up our minds.
Okay, let's do it.
First up is big picture thinking.
Okay.
Maxwell says these folks are the ultimate dot connectors.
Okay.
They're always learning, listening closely, trying to see beyond just the immediate situation.
Right. So think of someone like Jack Welch,
Okay.
the former CEO of GE.
Mm-hmm.
He completely shifted the company's focus from individual sales to building strong long-term customer relationships.
Right.
That wasn't about closing a quick deal. It was about understanding that loyal customers, they're the foundation of lasting success.
It's like playing chess, right? Thinking several moves ahead instead of just reacting to what's right in front of you.
Exactly. And big picture thinking is really a key ingredient for leadership.
Yeah.
These are the folks who see the vision, before others do.
Right.
They can assess a situation, understand all the moving parts. They're not afraid to, chart a new course.
Now, I got to be honest, sometimes I get so lost in the big picture that I forget about those, those nitty-gritty details.
I get it. That's where focused thinking comes in.
Okay.
It's all about harnessing your mental energy, eliminating distractions, and really zeroing in on what truly matters.
Okay, so it's not just about working hard, it's about working smart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maxwell actually uses focused thinking to develop his ideas.
Interesting.
So he starts with a brainstorming session with his team, generates a ton of possibilities. But then he sets aside dedicated time to really dive deep into the most promising ones. No distractions, just pure focus on developing those ideas into something amazing.
That makes sense. It's like saying, okay, brain, we've got all these ingredients. Now let's focus on crafting the perfect recipe.
I love that. I love that analogy. And part of focused thinking, it's also about understanding your own strengths.
Right.
And priorities. What are you naturally good at?
Yeah.
What activities will give you the biggest return on your time and energy?
That's a great point. It's about being intentional with your focus, making sure it aligns with your goals and passions.
Exactly. It's about finding those areas where your talents and your interests intersect and then really pouring your energy into them.
All right, now for the fun part, creative thinking.
Yes.
I'm picturing brainstorming sessions with colorful sticky notes and wild ideas just flying around.
That's the spirit. And Maxwell emphasizes that creative thinkers, they aren't afraid to challenge assumptions. They explore all sorts of options, and they definitely don't let the fear of failure hold them back.
It's like they have this, this permission slip to think outside the box and color outside the lines.
Exactly. Think of Leonardo da Vinci, not just an incredible painter, but also a sculptor, architect, inventor.
Right.
He was constantly blending ideas from these different fields, pushing the boundaries of what was possible.
Okay, so creative thinking isn't just about artistic expression. It's about that ability to connect seemingly unrelated ideas.
Yes.
And come up with something new, something innovative.
Exactly. And the more you exercise that creative muscle, the stronger it gets.
Right.
You actually draw people to you because creativity, it's contagious, right?
Yeah.
And you open yourself up to a world of possibilities because you're always learning
Right.
You're seeing things in new ways.
So how do we break free from those creativity killers? Those inner voices that tell us we're not creative enough.
It's a great question. Maxwell talks about surrounding ourselves with environments that actually encourage creativity,
Right.
where it's okay to take risks, think differently, and yes, even fail spectacularly sometimes.
That makes sense. It's about creating a space where our imaginations can just run wild without judgment.
Yes, yes. And remember, you don't always have to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes creative thinking, it's about taking existing ideas and combining them in new and innovative ways.
All right, now here's where I personally struggle. Realistic thinking. Sometimes I get so carried away with the possibilities that I forget to consider the practical side of things.
I get it. That's where realistic thinking comes in.
Okay.
It's about acknowledging potential consequences, anticipating challenges, and building a solid foundation for your ideas.
Like Maxwell says, hope is not a strategy.
Right.
You can't just wish for something to happen. You need a plan.
You need a plan. Exactly. It's not about being negative
Right.
or pessimistic.
Right.
It's about being grounded in reality.
Right.
Considering all angles, making sure your dreams are built on, solid ground.
So it's like balancing that, that pie in the sky optimism
Yes.
with a healthy dose of let's get real.
Exactly. Exactly. And realistic thinking, it builds credibility.
Right.
If you're constantly caught off guard by the unexpected, people might start questioning your ability to follow through.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about being prepared and thinking things through, not just, crossing your fingers and hoping for the best.
Right, right. And speaking of thinking things through, let's talk about strategic thinking.
Okay.
This is about taking those big picture ideas
Yeah.
and turning them into actionable plans.
So it's like having the map and knowing how to navigate it.
Exactly. Exactly. It's about breaking down complex issues into manageable steps,
Right.
asking the right questions, putting the right people in the right places.
And I love that Maxwell emphasizes that strategic thinking isn't about forcing circumstances to fit your plan.
Right.
It's about being adaptable,
Yeah.
adjusting your approach as needed, and always keeping the end goal in mind.
Right. It's not a rigid set of rules. It's a framework for making smart decisions and achieving your objectives.
So what's a good example of strategic thinking in action?
Well, think of Henry Ford
Okay.
and the assembly line.
Right?
He revolutionized car manufacturing by breaking down the process into smaller, more efficient steps.
Right.
That's strategic thinking at its finest.
It's like that feeling of relief when you finally have a plan in place, right? You can stop spinning your wheels and start taking concrete action.
Exactly, exactly. Strategic thinking simplifies the complex and reduces the chances of making mistakes. When you're reacting to everything on the fly, you're more likely to make those impulsive decisions that might not serve you in the long run.
Okay, time to unleash our inner optimists again. Possibility thinking, here we come.
I love it. I love it. Possibility thinking, it's all about believing in solutions, seeing potential where others see limitations,
Right.
and attracting opportunities by thinking big.
It's that, that contagious energy that just makes people want to be a part of something special.
Yes.
Maxwell actually uses the example of George Lucas in Star Wars. A lot of folks thought the special effects he envisioned were impossible.
Right.
But he didn't let that stop him.
And look what happened.
Exactly.
He revolutionized the film industry because he believed there was a way, even when others doubted him.
It's about having that courage to dream big, believe in your vision, and keep going even when faced with, with skepticism.
Absolutely. Possibility thinking, it's incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
It fuels your drive and determination. You're excited about what you're doing, and you truly believe in the outcome.
Speaking of drive and determination, sometimes I get so caught up in the hustle
Yeah.
that I forget to, pause and reflect.
That brings us to reflective thinking.
Okay.
This one's all about taking a step back, looking at your experiences, both the successes and the failures,
Right.
and extracting those valuable lessons.
It's like hitting that pause button on that mental hamster wheel.
Yes, yes.
Giving yourself time to process everything you've learned.
Exactly. Maxwell has this great habit. After every family vacation, he'll ask his children 2 questions. What did you like best?
Oh, I like that.
And what did you learn?
Yeah.
It's a simple but powerful way to encourage reflection.
And I bet those conversations reveal some pretty insightful observations.
They do.
It's like that saying, experience is the best teacher.
Right.
But it's not enough just to have the experience.
Right.
You need to take the time to understand why it happened and how you can apply those lessons moving forward.
Reflective thinking also helps you to develop emotional integrity.
Mhm.
It allows you to revisit those intense emotional moments, both positive and negative, with a fresh perspective.
Right,
You gain a deeper understanding of your own reactions
right.
and can approach future situations with greater wisdom and maturity.
It's like journaling, right? Putting your thoughts and feelings down on paper can help you process them more effectively and gain valuable insights.
Exactly, exactly. And it increases your confidence in decision making.
Right.
When you've taken the time to reflect on past choices and their outcomes, you can make future decisions with greater clarity and conviction.
Okay. So we've covered big picture thinking, focused thinking, creative thinking, realistic thinking, strategic thinking, possibility thinking, and reflective thinking. Feeling a little smarter already.
I know I am, but we've still got a few more thinking styles to explore.
You're right, you're right. Next up, we're tackling a bit of a controversial one, questioning popular thinking.
Ooh, okay.
This is where we get to be a little rebellious and challenge those widely accepted ideas that might be holding us back.
It's about having the courage to think for yourself, even when it goes against the grain.
You know, this reminds me of that story Maxwell shared about the physics teacher and the telescope lens cap.
Right.
It's so easy to get caught up in what everyone else is doing or saying that we forget to step back and assess the situation for ourselves.
It's a great reminder that we shouldn't just blindly accept what others tell us,
Yeah.
especially in today's world where we're bombarded with information from every direction.
Right.
We need to develop our critical thinking skills and be willing to question the status quo.
Because popular thinking often leads to average results, right?
Exactly, exactly. If you want to achieve uncommon success, you need to be willing to think unconventionally.
So are we saying we should just reject every commonly held belief?
Not at all. Not at all. It's not about being, contrary for the sake of it. It's about recognizing that popular thinking, it can be slow to embrace change.
Right.
Those who cling to those outdated ideas or ways of doing things, they often get left behind.
It's like that saying, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten.
Exactly. Exactly. Sometimes you need to shake things up a bit,
Yeah.
challenge those assumptions, and see if there's a better way.
Okay, I'm feeling a little rebellious. Ready to dive into the next thinking style.
Let's do it. Up next, shared thinking. This one is all about recognizing that we're smarter together than we are alone.
Ah, the power of collaboration. It's like that saying, two heads are better than one.
Exactly, exactly. Maxwell talks about how early in his career, he actively sought advice from successful pastors. He was willing to admit he didn't have all the answers, and he saw the value in learning from those with more experience.
And I bet that accelerated his learning process immensely.
Absolutely, absolutely. Shared thinking is all about bringing different perspectives to the table, bouncing ideas off each other, and coming up with solutions that we never could have imagined on our own.
It's like that feeling when you're in a brainstorming session and the energy is just electric. Ideas are flowing freely, building upon each other, and suddenly you're onto something truly remarkable.
Exactly, exactly. And it's not just about generating ideas, it's about moving forward as a team.
Right.
Shared thinking fosters that sense of ownership and accountability, ensuring that everyone is invested in the outcome.
So it's about creating a culture of collaboration where everyone feels like they're contributing to something bigger than themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it takes humility,
Right.
right? Being willing to admit that you don't have all the answers
Right.
and that others might have valuable insights that you haven't considered.
That's a great point. It's easy to get so caught up in our own ideas or our own expertise that we forget to listen to those around us.
Speaking of listening, let's circle back to reflective thinking for a moment.
Okay.
It seems like that could play a role in developing unselfish thinking as well.
Ooh, I see what you mean. If we take the time to reflect on our actions and their impact on others, we're more likely to develop empathy and compassion.
Right. It's about asking ourselves those tough questions. Did I put others first today? Did I make decisions that benefited the greater good, or was I motivated by self-interest?
It's like a moral inventory, a chance to honestly assess our behavior and identify areas where we need to grow.
Exactly. Exactly. And it takes courage to be that honest with ourselves, but it's essential for personal growth and for developing unselfish thinking.
Okay, this is fascinating. It's starting to feel like all of these thinking styles are interconnected in some way, building upon each other.
I agree. If you're a big picture thinker, you're more likely to see the value in shared thinking and unselfish thinking. If you're a focused thinker, You can use that skill to develop your creativity and your ability to reflect.
It's like a toolbox, right?
Yes?
We can pull out those different tools as needed depending on the situation and the desired outcome.
Exactly. And the more we practice using these tools, the more skilled we become at thinking for success.
So it's not just about knowing these different thinking styles, it's about applying them consistently and intentionally in our lives.
Right. And it's not a one-time fix, it's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
We're always evolving, adapting, and refining our thinking skills.
Okay, I'm ready to keep going. Let's move on to unselfish thinking, the one that I think is at the heart of true success.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. This is about putting others first, recognizing that success isn't just about personal gain.
And Maxwell emphasizes that unselfish thinking actually brings personal fulfillment.
It does.
There's a deep satisfaction that comes from helping others, adding value to their lives, and making a positive impact on the world around us.
Think of the story he shared about Merck, the pharmaceutical company.
Mm-hmm.
They developed this drug to cure river blindness,
Okay.
a disease that primarily affects people in developing countries who couldn't afford to pay for it.
Right.
Even though they knew they wouldn't make a profit, they decided to give the drug away for free because it was the right thing to do.
That's an incredible story. They really walked the walk, putting people before profits. And, ultimately, it benefits everyone involved.
Exactly. Unselfish thinking inspires other virtues. When we focus on helping others, we naturally become more compassionate, more understanding, more willing to go the extra mile.
It's like that ripple effect. One act of kindness inspiring countless others, creating a chain reaction of positivity.
And it's not just about those grand gestures.
Right.
Unselfish thinking is also about those small, everyday acts of kindness that can make a big difference in someone's life.
Absolutely. A listening ear, a helping hand, a word of encouragement. These are all expressions of unselfish thinking that can brighten someone's day.
Speaking of making a positive impact, let's talk about bottom line thinking.
All right, time to get down to business.
Yes. This one is all about clarity, focus, and results.
Okay.
It's about identifying the desired outcome, aligning your actions with that goal, and holding yourself accountable for achieving it.
It's like having a laser focus on what you're trying to accomplish.
Exactly. Maxwell tells this great story about Frances Hesselbein, who took over as the National Executive Director of the Girl Scouts of America when the organization was really struggling.
Okay.
She realized they needed to get back to their core mission, helping girls reach their full potential.
That's an inspiring story. They weren't just focused on selling cookies.
Right.
They were focused on making a real difference in the lives of young girls.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of bottom line thinking. It provides a clear roadmap, guiding every step towards that desired destination.
Okay, so bottom line thinking can be a powerful force for good, but I'm also curious about the potential downsides.
That's a great point. While bottom line thinking is crucial, it's also important to be aware of its potential pitfalls, especially when taken to an extreme.
I'm all ears. Let's dive into that in the next part.
Yeah, it's true. Becoming fixated on just the bottom line, especially when it's only about profit, that can lead to some tricky situations ethically.
Right, like you hear these stories, right, about companies cutting corners on safety or misleading customers, all just to boost their numbers.
Exactly. And that's why unselfish thinking is so important for balance.
Yeah.
It's that reminder that success is not just about, those numbers on a spreadsheet.
Right.
It's about making a positive impact on the world.
You can have all the money in the world, but what's it worth if you've lost your integrity along the way?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And bottom line thinking, it can actually backfire if it's not tempered with other values.
Yeah.
If all you care about is hitting those targets no matter the cost, you might end up damaging your reputation or even hurting others in the process.
So how do we make sure we're using bottom line thinking responsibly?
Well, for one thing, we need to be clear about what our bottom line actually is.
Right.
Is it just about making money, or is it about something more?
Yeah.
For Frances Hesselbein and the Girl Scouts, it was about empowering girls. And that guided their decisions, even when it meant, turning down opportunities that might have been financially lucrative.
That makes sense. Having a purpose that goes beyond just profit. And I think that's where shared thinking comes in, right? Having a team of people with diverse perspectives can help you see those ethical blind spots, the ones you might miss on your own.
Absolutely. When you've got a group of people with different experiences and backgrounds brainstorming together, you're less likely to make those short-sighted decisions that could have negative consequences down the road.
It's like having this built-in ethics committee. Making sure everyone is accountable for their actions and considering the impact on all stakeholders.
Exactly. And it's not just about avoiding those bad decisions, it's about making better ones.
Right.
When you tap into that collective wisdom of a group, you can come up with solutions that are more creative, more innovative, and more ethically sound.
It's like crowdsourcing your decision-making process, getting input from multiple sources to make sure you're considering all angles.
I like that. And it helps to avoid those groupthink scenarios where everyone just goes along with the most dominant voice, even if it's not the best idea.
Right.
Shared thinking encourages that healthy debate and constructive criticism.
So it's not just about, getting people in a room together. It's about creating a safe space where everyone feels comfortable sharing their thoughts and challenging the status quo.
Right. Maxwell talks about moving from competition to cooperation, where the focus is on finding the best solution, not on who came up with it.
That's a great point. Sometimes our egos can get in the way of making the best decisions.
They can.
We need to be willing to set aside our pride and focus on what's best for the team, the organization, or even, society as a whole.
And that takes humility, right?
Yeah.
Being willing to admit you don't have all the answers and that others might have valuable insights that you haven't considered.
Speaking of insights, you mentioned earlier that reflective thinking could play a role in developing unselfish thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Of course. When we take the time to reflect on our actions and their impact on others, we're more likely to develop empathy and compassion.
It's like taking a step back and saying, okay, how did my decisions affect the people around me? Did I put their needs before my own?
Exactly. It's about asking those tough questions and being honest with ourselves about our motivations.
And it takes courage to do that, right? To really look in the mirror and acknowledge those areas where we need to grow.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's essential for personal growth and for developing unselfish thinking.
This conversation is really making me see how interconnected all of these thinking styles are. It's like they build upon each other, creating a sort of upward spiral of personal and professional development.
I agree. If you're a big picture thinker, you're more likely to see the value in shared thinking and unselfish thinking. If you're a focused thinker, you can use that skill to develop your creativity and your ability to reflect.
It's like a toolbox.
Yes.
Each thinking style, a different tool we can pull out depending on the situation.
And the more we practice using these tools, the more skilled we become at navigating the challenges of life and work.
Exactly. And it's not just about knowing these thinking styles.
Yeah.
It's about applying them, consistently and intentionally in our lives.
Right. And it's not a one-time fix.
Right.
It's an ongoing process. We're always evolving, adapting, and refining our thinking skills.
Absolutely. And speaking of evolving and adapting, remember how we talked about questioning popular thinking?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes that means going against the grain, even when it feels uncomfortable.
It's like that saying, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down.
Right.
But sometimes, that nail is the one that holds everything together.
Exactly. It can be scary to challenge the status quo.
You can.
But it's often those unpopular ideas that lead to the real breakthroughs.
Think about Copernicus.
Okay.
He challenged that widely held belief that the Earth was the center of the universe.
Right.
His ideas, they were initially met with resistance, but they revolutionized our understanding of the cosmos.
Wow, that's a pretty big example.
It is.
It takes guts to go against the grain like that, especially when everyone else is so convinced they're right.
It does. But think of all the progress we've made as a society because people dared to question popular thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Civil rights, women's suffrage, scientific advancements.
Right.
These all started with someone saying, hey, wait a minute, what if we're wrong about this?
That's a powerful thought. It makes you realize that we all have a responsibility to think critically.
We do.
And challenge those assumptions that might be holding us back, both individually and as a society.
Absolutely. And it's not about being contrary for the sake of it. It's about seeking the truth.
Yeah.
Even when it's uncomfortable or unpopular.
So how do we cultivate this habit of questioning popular thinking? It's so easy to just go along with the crowd, especially when it feels, safer or more convenient.
It takes conscious effort.
Yeah.
Maxwell suggests surrounding yourself with people who think differently than you.
Okay.
Exposing yourself to new ideas and experiences, and always being willing to ask why.
I like that. It's about staying curious,
Yes.
open-minded, and always seeking to learn and grow, and maybe even being a little bit of a rebel.
Exactly. And it's also about being willing to challenge your own assumptions.
Right.
We all have biases and blind spots,
Yeah.
and it's important to be aware of them so they don't limit our thinking.
Okay, so how do we go about identifying those blind spots?
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to say be aware of your biases, but it's much harder to actually do it.
That's where self-reflection comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Take some time to really think about your beliefs and values.
Yeah.
And where they come from.
Yeah.
Talk to people who have different perspectives than you and really listen to what they have to say.
So it's about, stepping outside of our own echo chambers and seeking out those diverse perspectives.
Exactly. And remember, questioning popular thinking, it's not about being right or wrong.
Right?
It's about being open to those new possibilities
Yeah.
and challenging yourself to grow.
Okay, I'm starting to feel a little more rebellious already. But before I go out and start questioning everything, let's talk about the last thinking style on our list. Bottom line thinking.
Great idea. Great idea. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but it's worth diving into a bit deeper.
Mm-hmm.
As you mentioned, bottom line thinking, it could be incredibly effective.
Yeah.
But it's important to use it responsibly and ethically.
So it's not just about achieving results, at any cost.
Right.
It's about making sure those results align with our values.
Yeah.
And don't come at the expense of others.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to balance bottom line thinking with those other thinking styles, like unselfish thinking, shared thinking, and big picture thinking.
Okay, so let's say you're in a situation where you need to make a tough decision.
Yeah.
You've got your bottom line in mind, but you're also trying to be unselfish and consider the needs of others.
Right.
How do you navigate that tension?
That's where things can get really tricky.
Yeah.
There's no easy answer.
Right.
And sometimes you have to make, tough choices that won't please everyone. But the key is to be intentional and thoughtful about your decision-making process.
So take your time, weigh all your options.
Yes.
And really think about those potential consequences of each choice.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to seek out advice from others.
Yep.
Sometimes talking through a problem with someone you trust can help you to see things more clearly.
That's a great point. It's easy to get so caught up in our own heads that we lose perspective.
We do.
Talking to someone else can help us to, get out of our own way and see that bigger picture.
Right. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. We all do it.
Yeah.
The important thing is to learn from those mistakes and use them as opportunities for growth.
Okay. I'm feeling a lot more confident about navigating those tough decisions now, but I'm also curious to hear more about how bottom line thinking can be used for positive change, not just for achieving personal or professional goals.
That's a great question. And I think the story of Frances Hesselbein and the Girl Scouts, it's a perfect example of that.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't just focused on selling the most cookies.
Right.
They were focused on making a real difference in the lives of young girls.
Right.
Their bottom line, it was about empowering girls and helping them reach their full potential.
And that's a bottom line I can definitely get behind.
Yeah.
So how do we go about identifying a bottom line that's both meaningful and impactful?
It starts with identifying your values.
Okay.
What's truly important to you.
Right.
What do you want to accomplish in the world? Once you have a clear understanding of your values, then you can start setting goals and making decisions that are aligned with those values.
So it's not just about what you want to achieve, it's about why you want to achieve it.
Exactly. And your bottom line, it might evolve over time as you learn and grow. It's perfectly normal. The important thing is to be intentional about the choices you make and to make sure those choices are moving you in the direction you want to go.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these thinking styles fit together like pieces of a puzzle.
Yeah.
We need big picture thinking to set our sights on the horizon, focused thinking to hone in on the details, creative thinking to generate innovative solutions, realistic thinking to keep our feet on the ground, strategic thinking to create a roadmap for success, possibility thinking to fuel our dreams, reflective thinking to learn from our experiences, questioning popular thinking to challenge the status quo, shared thinking to tap into the wisdom of others, unselfish thinking to put people first, and bottom line thinking to ensure our efforts are are purposeful and impactful.
That's a brilliant summary. It's not about mastering any one thinking style. It's about developing a diverse toolkit and knowing when to use each tool effectively.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
So true.
We're all works in progress, constantly learning and growing.
So true. But with the right mindset and a willingness to put in the effort, we can all become more successful thinkers.
Okay, this has been an incredible conversation. I'm feeling inspired and ready to put these principles into practice.
Me too. And I'm sure our listeners are feeling the same way.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you wanna add?
Yes, I'd like to emphasize the importance of taking action.
Okay.
It's not enough just to read about these thinking styles or listen to us talk about them.
Yeah.
You have to actually put them into practice in your own life.
That's great advice. It's like learning to play an instrument. You can read all the books and watch all the videos, but you'll never become a musician until you actually pick up the instrument and start playing.
Exactly. So I encourage our listeners to choose one thinking style that they want to focus on developing.
Okay.
And then start taking small steps to put that thinking style into practice in their daily lives.
That's a great challenge. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. Reach out to a friend, a mentor, or a trusted colleague and ask them to support you on your journey.
Great idea. And don't be afraid to experiment and make mistakes. That's how we learn and grow.
Okay, folks, you heard it here first. It's time to ditch those lens caps, open up your minds, and start thinking for success.
Until next time.
All right, I'm fired up and ready to keep exploring these awesome thinking styles from John C. Maxwell's book, How Successful People Think. We've covered a lot of ground already, but I'm especially curious about bottom line thinking.
Yeah.
It seems like it could be a real game changer, but also, a bit of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, that's a great observation. Bottom line thinking is all about results.
Right.
But it's crucial to define what those results should be.
Right.
Are we talking just profits?
Right.
Or something bigger, something more meaningful?
Right. Like that story about Frances Hesselbein and the Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
Their bottom line wasn't about selling the most cookies.
Right.
It was about empowering girls and helping them, reach their full potential.
Exactly.
Yep.
And that's where the potential pitfalls come in.
If you're so fixated on hitting a specific target, especially if it's a narrow definition of success, like profit,
Right.
you might miss the forest for the trees.
Yeah. It's like that saying, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world yet forfeit his soul?
Right.
You can't let the pursuit of success come at the cost of your integrity or the well-being of others.
Right, and that's why it's so important to balance bottom line thinking with those other styles we've discussed.
Right.
Unselfish thinking. It reminds us that success isn't a zero-sum game. Shared thinking brings diverse perspectives to the table, helping us to make more ethical and well-rounded decisions.
So it's not about abandoning bottom line thinking altogether. It's about making sure it's aligned with our values and used for good.
Right.
Not just for personal gain.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where we're achieving results
Yeah.
and making a positive impact on the world. Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. Bottom line thinking is a powerful tool.
It is.
But it needs to be used responsibly and ethically.
Right.
Yeah.
And it needs to be balanced with those other thinking styles to create a truly fulfilling and sustainable definition of success.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
I feel like I've added some serious tools to my thinking toolbox.
Me too.
But there's one more thinking style we need to talk about before we wrap up.
Okay.
Remember how we discussed questioning popular thinking?
Yes.
Well, it's time to put on our rebellious hats and dive into that one, a bit deeper.
Okay, I'm ready for that.
Okay, I'm game. I'm ready to challenge those assumptions and see where it leads. But honestly, it can be a little scary to go against the grain.
It could be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's often those unpopular ideas, the ones that make people squirm a bit.
Right.
That lead to real breakthroughs.
Yeah.
Think about Copernicus.
Okay.
He dared to challenge that widely accepted idea that the Earth was the center of the universe.
Right.
His unpopular thinking, it literally changed our understanding of the cosmos.
Wow. Talk about thinking outside the box.
Right.
It takes guts to go against the grain like that, especially when everyone else is so convinced they're right.
It does. But think of all the progress we've made as a society because people dared to question popular thinking, civil rights, women's suffrage, scientific advancements.
Right.
These all started with someone saying, "Hey, wait a minute. What if we're wrong about this?"
That's a powerful thought.
It is.
It makes you realize that we all have a responsibility to think critically and challenge those assumptions that might be holding us back, both individually and as a society. We can't just blindly accept things because that's the way they've always been done.
Exactly. And it's not about being contrary for the sake of it.
Right.
It's about seeking the truth even when it's uncomfortable or unpopular.
So how do we cultivate this habit of questioning popular thinking? It's so easy to just go along with the crowd, especially when it feels safer or more convenient.
It takes conscious effort.
Yeah.
Maxwell suggests surrounding yourself with people who think differently than you.
Okay.
Exposing yourself to new ideas and experiences and always being willing to ask why.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about staying curious,
Yes.
open-minded, and always seeking to learn and grow, and maybe even being a little bit of a rebel.
Exactly. And it's also about being willing to challenge your own assumptions.
Right.
We all have biases and blind spots.
Right.
And it's important to be aware of them so they don't limit our thinking.
You know, this reminds me of that physics teacher with the telescope lens cap.
Oh, yeah.
We can get so caught up in what we think we know or what everyone else is saying that we miss the obvious.
It's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to step back, remove that metaphorical lens cap,
Right.
and look at things with fresh eyes.
So to wrap things up, it seems like the key to successful thinking is not about mastering any one particular style, but about developing a diverse toolkit and knowing when to use each tool effectively. It's about being adaptable, open-minded, and courageous enough to challenge our own assumptions and the assumptions of others.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's about embracing that journey of continuous learning and growth.
Yeah.
Always striving to become more thoughtful, more insightful, and more impactful in our thinking.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of John C. Maxwell's book, How Successful People Think. But I'm already feeling more equipped to navigate the complexities of life and work.
Me too. And I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to put these principles into practice in their own lives.
So to all our amazing listeners out there, keep those minds sharp.
Yes.
Keep those questions coming and keep thinking for success.
Until next time.